So, welcome everyone and welcome to this webinar which is organized by Seidat. My name is Paulus Perkkiö. I'm the founder and CEO of the company. I'm here together with Stina. Stina will introduce herself a little bit later, but welcome everybody. In the early beginning, I recommend you to follow our social media channels. In those channels, we are every time telling what's coming next, so it's an easy way to keep yourself up to date all the time. But today we will concentrate to this title, Maximize New Customer Acquisition Results. It's a really interesting topic, and I'm here together with Stina. Could you introduce yourself? Welcome.
Yes, absolutely. So hi, everyone. My name is Stina Dansie, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Good Call. And what we do is, we do a couple of things. We help companies set up sales meetings with their ideal customers. And then we also train companies in cold calling, in outbound contacting. And then we have also branched out to doing different kinds of telephone interviews as well. But today is going to be all about outbound and inbound also. We'll be talking about, as you can see over there, that the topics listed, a little bit about, and there's my guy, there's Brandon. I had invited Brandon. I had mentioned that earlier, that I got a sales lead from London, and I told him to just join us for the webinar, so then he can determine if he wants to work with me or not. So anyways, so that's me.
Yes, welcome, Stina.
Thank you.
I have discussed with you so many times that I know exactly how professional you are in this field, and it's really nice to have this opportunity to have this webinar together with you. But today we will have a discussion about new customer acquisition. Is there any differences between inbound and outbound? What are the best practices, and when should you cold call? Or is there any other opportunities, any other channels which you could use? Then we will try to tell you how to be successful in all kind of new customer acquisition, what kind of critical stages there are, and how to lead people who are doing that kind of work. It's a really interesting topic, and of course, the first interesting question is, what does it mean to do new customer acquisition? It's sales, but can you explain your opinion? How do you think about that whole topic?
Yeah, as I'm throwing my laptop around, absolutely. So. So many times when we talk about new customer acquisition, at least here in Finland, it has almost a type of a clang that it almost is as if we're talking about cold calling or setting up sales appointments, which is only a teeny tiny fraction and a part of what new customer acquisition really is. And as the word itself is very self-explanatory. We have sales, which is more like account management type of sales, where you're selling to either existing customers or customers that have bought from you before. And then you have new customer acquisition, which is selling to companies that have possibly never even heard of you before. So that's pretty self-explanatory, but also important to define that, no, we're not only talking about the teeny tiny part of new customer acquisition that we many times reduce it down to, at least in the Finnish language.
Yeah. Sorry, I will send message. But yes, how I see it is this sales question and new customer acquisition in Finland, for example, is that typically when we are discussing about sales, it means new customer acquisition. But too many times we are combining this account management and new customer acquisition in same sentence without dividing them, because they are totally different kind of sales activities. And yeah.
It is true, and also many times when I am hired, or me and my company, when we're hired, if we're hired to do consulting rather than the cold calling itself, many times the reason is that the companies have found that their sales have become very reactive rather than proactive, and they have a hard time changing the culture. And so these are, through different workshops and different sales trainings, are also ways that we are able to impact that. But I don't know how it is elsewhere in the world. Now we have some international people, but at least here in Finland, it does seem like a lot of salespeople feel much more comfortable selling to companies that have bought from them before, and sometimes it can be a little bit cumbersome to get them to start walking on the water again and start looking for new customers.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add before we go to our sales process?
No, I think this is good enough. We can continue with that process.
Yeah. So
because
now
it's a huge topic.
It's a huge topic, exactly. But at least we've kind of framed the discussion and what we're going to be talking about. And now, if you're like me, you've probably read through this entire slide already, and I know that it's not the best idea necessarily to put all of your points on the slide, but I wanted to play it safe and make sure I don't forget anything important. So, talking about the sales process for new customer acquisition, which actually the sales process, it is a little bit different to in comparison when you're selling to existing customers. And so this is my sales process, and the sales process that I also recommend for other people. So obviously we start, and something that's not even mentioned in the sales process, but we did mention in our earlier webinar last week that we didn't finish. The very first step is to make a decision that you want to grow and that you want to grow by acquiring new customers. Because until you make the decision, and until the decision is clearly made from the leadership of the company and clearly communicated to the sales team, then the tendency often is to go where it's easier. And there are many benefits to growing through brand new customers. For example, old customers, there's always that kind of the history there. So if you want to increase your prices, get a new customer. If you want the market to begin to view in a different way, you want to sell something new, it's much easier to sell to a new client than to sell to somebody else who views you a certain way. Anything else you'd like to add to that? Why else should we sell to new customers rather than old ones?
Of course, there's then those geographical viewpoints and many, but I think those are really important ones. Pricing and the product palette or service palette which you are trying to sell to your customers. I have had this kind of feeling many times that I have been, if I go shortly back to my background, is that my educational background is in industrial design. It means that I have been working with same customers in product development and in marketing. But if they start to know me as a product development guy, it's totally impossible to start selling them also marketing services. It's one example of that challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm kind of like going back and forth. Should I share a story? Maybe not. Maybe let's go through this, and we'll get to the stories later. So about the sales process. So after we made the decision that we want to grow, and we want to grow by acquiring new customers, the first step is obviously determining the right target audience. And this may seem self-explanatory to you, but the reason why I want to highlight this is that it seems to me that right now there is this tendency to be super effective, which is a good thing. We want to be effective, but there is a difference between effectiveness and skipping steps. And what I see in new customer acquisition is that there's a huge lack of strategy, and there is a huge lack of focus in the right customers. So actually, the way that you will find true effectiveness in your new customer acquisition is, rather than spending as little time as possible in determining your right audience, spend as much time as possible in determining your right audience, because then you will waste much less time in the future steps. So this is step number one. And obviously, when it comes to ideal customer profile, I don't know, maybe well, in general, just that there are four things to the ideal customer profile, which step number one is the demographics, the general demographics, like headcount, industry, revenue, and there are different databases where you can get that information, and by outbound lists and such. Cognism
That's really
is
easy part of that work.
it's the easiest part, but most companies, at least historically, have stopped there. But it does not end there. That is only the bare minimum. After that, so that's number one, is just the basic demographics. Then we have the right timing. And now we have, for example, here in Finland, and actually it's international already, but it's a Finnish company called Vainu, and then a British company called Cognism that has and other ones as well, Lead Forensics. There's a couple others that are able to really tap into the right timing, like growth in recruiting, growth in revenue, personnel changes, new offices, and then of course another thing. Some of the other things that go with the right timing, of course, are materials downloaded from our website, webinar visitors, and other things. So that's number two. And then number three is our buyer personas. And the reason why that's important is it's important to understand who to contact first. Do we go from the top down? Do we go from the bottom up? Having an understanding of how the decision-making process happens within the company, and making it visible. And then step number four is profitability. And what's important in that is when, for example, when I prospect customers for myself and my own company, or prospect customers, or how I advise my customers to prospect, is looking at the whole life cycle of the customer. So rather than thinking about what company is the easiest company to sell one service to, you think about what kind of companies are maybe easiest, but also long-term, that we're able to sell them this service, that service, and that way you also make it effective. You have to do less because you get more from one customer. Great. 16 minutes into it, and we've gone through point number one. I'm going to pick it up a little bit. Obviously, then the next phase is our first contact, which we have several channels. We have phone, we have LinkedIn, we have email, and face-to-face. And again, only book a meeting if they're qualified to buy. This is my personal opinion. There's this quality quantity type of a conversation always going on. And in my opinion, it's much better to qualify the lead as far as you can qualify them on the first call, so that you're not wasting your time and dragging the customer along through the process, and then find out at the end of the day that they're not qualified to buy. Then we have our meeting, which is a previously scheduled value producing dialogue in which a plan is created to solve a jointly identified challenge. That's a long sentence, but I'm glad I wrote it down. And so I think that's pretty self-explanatory, except for the fact that we want it to be value producing. One of the big complaints about sales and salespeople in general is that sales meetings are many times, and we hear this study after study after study, that sales meetings are not producing enough value. And so we want to do it differently. We want you guys to do it differently. We want to make sure that you're producing value in your meetings. And then what happens in between the official meetings? Those things that are in the calendar. We have our meeting, and we have our meeting to go through the offer. So we want to make sure that we have good material that we can send to them. And so together with the champion that we have connected with from the company, that we can help sell the idea of us. So in a sense, communicating to the rest of the organization that are not on that initial meeting. Then we want to schedule an offer meeting. Me personally, I don't send an offer unless there's a person who's qualified to buy on the other end, and unless they're willing to book a meeting with me. If they just only ask me to send an offer, there's a very high likelihood that I will not send it to them. And then, and of course, I'm not rude about it, but I will let them know that, if I'm going to make you an offer, let's make sure that we go through it, so we're not wasting anyone's time. And then one thing, hopefully you all have this in your sales process, a go, no-go meeting. In some of my trainings, I've found that that a lot of salespeople don't have this, or don't have a habit of having this. But I highly recommend it. It's something that just makes sense to me, to schedule a 15-minute meeting. After the offer meeting, when you finish up the conversation, you ask them, how much time do you need? What's going to happen? You kind of coach them through that. What are the next steps that are happening? Who do you need to talk to? And so forth. And then you schedule a meeting in which you will then hear what the rest of the team has said and what the decision is. And I've had great success in this. And actually, a lot of companies that I use this sales process with, which is all of the companies that I sell to, I get a lot of positive feedback from them. And they feel that, this is good. I like it. You're strict, and you know what you're after, and they like it. So I feel like I've had a very long monologue. Paulus, go ahead.
Yeah. We could discuss the whole webinar about this topic, but what I want to point out is that it's also a good question. Should we prefer quality or quantity? I think especially in the beginning of the sales process, because in Finland, especially, there are too many people who are too afraid of selling, and they make a research, they develop their product, they develop their marketing, they develop their pitch deck and everything all the time, but they don't have enough time to sell and use those development results. And that's why I sometimes say that, or quite often says that, in many cases, it's better to start doing things, not to research too much. And it's also another point of view. It's very important to understand the ICP, but you can't understand the ICP if you are sitting on your office desk and you try to do some planning. You must go to your customers, potential customers, and test your ideas, and then you see if it's working and if you are working with ICP or not.
That's true, and that's actually a great point. And I'm sure that we even have people here either on the line now or listening later that are in different stages. So for example, when you're going to a new market or you have a new service, just like you explained, you cannot have an ICP. You might have thoughts, you might have ideas, but it's a theory. It's a hypothesis. And honestly, I didn't even have that when I started selling. I had no idea. I had no idea. I had one of my customers that I had been setting up sales meetings for, both in Finland and in Australia. He sat me down when I started my own company, and he told me, congratulations, now that you're a CEO, you started your own company. I just want to share you one piece of advice. The most important strategic decision you'll ever make is who you sell to. And I'm like, okay. I have to cross my heart. I have no idea what he meant. In my mind, I'm thinking sell to everybody, but what I did do is I started selling to the largest companies possible. Because in my mind, that's what I had been doing for them. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, sell, the most important decision you ever make, strategic decision, is who you sell to. Okay, fine. Well, you're selling to Microsoft, you're selling to, all these big companies. I guess that maybe I should do that too. And that's what I did.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was not a bad choice.
And if we go back what you said, I think you was quite proactive in your sales ideology. But yes, in the early beginning, I said that what are the differences between outbound and inbound? Here, we have turned together with Stina those words so that it's proactive or reactive. Is there any differences to do sales proactive or reactive way? I feel it's so that this reactive is inbound and proactive is outbound. Do you feel the same way?
Yes, essentially they are the same thing, but the reason why I changed the wording is because I feel that the inbound outbound conversation always gets reduced to a channel conversation. Is cold calling dead or is it not dead? And so in a sense, we are reducing the conversation to, again, a teeny tiny part of what is actually going on. And when we're talking about reactive and proactive sales, all of a sudden we have all the channels available and we look at a much bigger picture. And that's the reason why I've started talking about reactive sales and proactive sales rather than inbound and outbound. Essentially the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely they are. But there are big differences. There are big differences which we don't think to. I see that in those discussions, when we are discussing about cold calling is dead, everything should be inbound and you must only sell to hot lead. That we are missing this discussion. What are the differences? And I see the biggest difference is that inbound lead has typically done quite a long journey until they contact. They know quite a lot about your product and they know also all alternatives, all competitors. And this makes inbound sales also a little bit more challenging in some cases.
Yes, absolutely. And so first of all, I have to say that this whole cold calling is dead, this slogan, it was HubSpot that came out with it because they wanted to sell something. And it is an ideology that is easy to buy. And the whole idea of it, of course, they don't say that anymore. They needed it initially. And it's a great marketing. I mean, great marketing slogans, they changed the world, really. And it did change the sales world. It made a huge change. And a lot of companies started to really believe in outbound and proactive sales being dead. And it did not fare well with them. And now they've come back, and now we're back in that place of, okay, so it's not so black and white, but it is exactly like you said, that when the customer has independently already traveled their buyer journey for a lot longer distance, you have much less control of what the customer actually wants at the end of the day, because you haven't been involved. Yeah. So that is the reason why we want to be like, the earlier on that we are involved in the customer buying journey, the more control we have, the more likely it is to go our way. And now there are a number of studies that, it is where it's still discussed that, okay, customers, they want to, that this is how customers want to buy. They want to research independently. And I just came to think about it last week, that what if the reason why customers want to research independently is because we as salespeople have done a horrible job at helping them, at providing value. According to research, that is the case. I don't have the statistics. I don't believe I grabbed the statistics here. I did it, but it's an incredible amount of decision makers that say that sales meetings provide absolutely no value. I believe it was like 69% or something like that. And so, of course, if you have salespeople that are only focused on their own agenda, only talking about who they are and their pitch, they don't care about the customer and their need and their problems, then of course you don't want to talk to a person like that. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, could get a little carried away with that, but yeah. I think that.
But if I think my background, I have done so much outbound sales, and I must say that this possibility in outbound sales is something what we are missing too many times, and it's the possibility to swim in blue ocean without any competition with your own strengths. It's something which gives you many business opportunities.
Exactly, with your own strengths, because many times once you are at the end of the buyer journey, many times you compete with things you don't want to compete with. You compete with price and not necessarily your own strengths, because the customers essentially already decided what they want.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we can.
Out then, if you want to make active sales, what are the best ways to contact actively? What is your opinion, Stina?
Yep. So the proactive channels, of course, we have LinkedIn, which is still currently a very good channel for communicating. That for me personally, I mean, I use my strongest channels are phone and LinkedIn. And of course, face-to-face too, but that's just happens a little bit less these days. That just talking about the different characteristics of these different channels. About LinkedIn, it is sometimes a little bit slow, because according to the usual LinkedIn etiquette, you cannot go directly and start selling. I mean, of course you can, and you have all these people, and
technically it's possible.
yeah, it
It's
is
easy.
technically possible, very easy. However, should you do it? Not necessarily. And so, to set up a sales meeting, it could take days versus just picking up the phone, calling the person that you want to get in touch with, and just booking that dang meeting. So those are some of the things that I think about that.
And the question there is interaction, because sales is interaction. And in phone, it's easy to have that interaction immediately, real time. But in LinkedIn, the interaction is in evening times. I have noticed that it works quite quickly sometimes. But it's a good question. Who has opportunity to work evenings every day, for example? Not all of us, at least. And I would say also that there are big differences between different kind of industries. In building industry, for example, LinkedIn is not maybe the best channel. There are many better channels also for them.
Right. And also for LinkedIn, I'm trying to find the word for here. I can't think of it. But anyway, so what is unfortunate about LinkedIn is that people that don't really need it for their own sales aren't so active there. So, for example, if you want to connect with like somebody C-level from like a very large company, unless someone like Orna Kankkunen has gone there or another social selling guru and has gotten them to understand that, hey, you want to be active on LinkedIn and that kind of a thing. They're not there. And so, or they're there, but they're not actively there. So you can't reach them there as easily. Of course, and this is true across all the channels. As information increases, it is going to be harder and harder to reach in any channel, which then means we just need to become better at it. Let's not kill any channels. Can we agree to that? Let's not kill any channels. Let's just become better at them.
But it's good reminder after COVID time that face-to-face is not also died. And it's so amazing to visit all kind of events and meet people face-to-face there and create contacts and continue those discussions, maybe in phone calls, in virtual meetings, and so on. But this face-to-face, it's like in Finland we say uusi musta. Is it new black in English? I can't. I don't understand.
No, it's in English too. Yeah, and so I shared last time a story about how we ended up getting to one of the largest retail chain in the world by walking into one of their stores here in Helsinki, Finland. I shook someone's hand, told them who I am and what I present, and eventually I am over there in Copenhagen meeting with the head of Nordics. And obviously that took a couple of months from the moment that I shook someone's hand to the meeting. But the fact that it was unexpected, nobody expected anybody to go. Nobody it wasn't my firm, obviously, it was my customers. Nobody there expected me to be able to get a connection that way. But I figured, I might as well try. And it was a good thing that I did, because once we found that worked, we did that in a number of other chains, and lo and behold, the same exact thing happened. So we got a number of chains, retail chains, international retail chains, that simply by being a little bit creative, and is it really creative? I don't know. I mean, originally cold calling, actually, the very first cold call ever was a cold call, not phone call. It was invented before the phone was invented. It was John Patterson, I believe, who invented it, and that it was a model for selling directly door to door. And so just being a little bit creative or maybe doing things in an unexpected way can actually also end up to your advantage.
And mixing all those channels. But if you are mixing all those channels, when should you cold call them?
Yes. So yeah, perfect. So I actually touched on that a little bit already. So when trying to reach large companies, then one of the best ways is going to be cold calling, just directly. And especially here in Finland, it is extremely, it is almost embarrassing how easy it is to get contact information, yet we don't always do it. For pretty much any company, pretty much any decision maker. And so I would say when you know who you want to contact, and it's a little bit larger company, I would say cold call it's a great idea. And also, actually, as you were talking about mixing the channels, many times what I will do, for example, is I'll use the different channels to set up a time for a call, which then, of course, it's not a cold call anymore if you've set up the time. But that way you can make sure that you get the benefit of the call, which it is the most personal, most direct, easiest way to be remembered. And also the easiest way to differentiate yourself from every other person, which is unfortunately not necessarily used as much as it could be. I think many times, and maybe this might be one of the last things that I say about cold calling, the unfortunate thing is that we underestimate this channel. And I believe that one of the reasons is because historically it's been done so poorly. And we have ourselves, in either through B2B contacts or at least B2C, we've received so many cold calls that are horrendous, and which then causes us to think, well, I don't want to cause that pain onto anybody else. But let's not kill this channel, because it really works, and because it is not done so great. There is a great chance to differentiate yourself from all the other salespeople.
But I must say also, if we think about cold calling as a calls, it's absolutely really good channel in Finland, and maybe in Nordics. But if you go to other countries in the Central Europe, for example, or USA, it's not that easy to find even any phone numbers, so that there is no possibility to call anyone because you don't have any number where to call. And it makes it a little bit different in different countries, but still
it does. And so I have my mentor lives in upstate New York, and she still says to this day that she finds cold calling to be the most effective ways to find a new customer.
Yeah.
And so you just need to know how to do it in your own market. It's a little bit different in each market. The one thing that is true in across all markets is that every channel it's going to be much harder, and as time goes on, it's going to be harder and harder. So we need to find new ways and also develop our skill, really.
Yes.
And yeah. Okay. Let's move on.
Yeah. If I make a short, like a middle summary to this discussion, what are the critical steps of new customer acquisition? What we have been already discussing was understanding of ICP, creating good script or story, or build the right kind of argumentation to your sales pitch. have right attitude, winning attitude, and the quantity actions. You must have those actions to get good results. And then having the importance of the first contact is really big, because the first contact, if you do it in email, by calling or meeting a face-to-face, you can do it only once, and it's really important to get that first impression. Then when you have that opportunity to discuss, please try to schedule a meeting, and in a meeting schedule next steps immediately. Don't miss that opportunity when you have it, and share the calendar invitation with your colleagues. I have too many times missed a meeting when I have been buying something, or someone has been selling to me, that they have called me, we have scheduled a meeting, I have said that please send me a calendar invitation. I have never got that invitation, and if I don't have something in my calendar, it will not happen.
Yeah.
And
if it's not in the calendar, it does not exist.
Exactly. Then you must have enthusiasm and trust. Build the trust during the whole process, so that you will have a good conversation with your customer. If you don't have that good conversation, you can't find the need, you can't find the pain, and then you can't tell how good solutions you have and give the proposal to your customer. And if you can't make the proposal, you don't have any opportunity to close the deal.
Mm-hmm.
What missed I?
No, I don't think you missed anything. I was just thinking about the verbal script and story and argumentation. I think it's extremely important to plan it in advance. And of course, like, say for example, Paulus and I had just come on this webinar without any kind of a plan. Hopefully you will find it, this webinar, you'll find it useful. But if we had just come on here just to talk about anything, then it might be a little bit hard to kind of like even grab a hold of like, what are they even talking about, and how does it apply to me, like, yeah, whatever. And so that's kind of the same thing with the scripts. It is, and this is how like script writing is one of my like specialties, I guess. And what I really love to do, well, I kind of love to do it, and I'm really good at it because I talk to so many decision makers, and I use myself as almost like a what do you call it, like a mirror. How I look at it is like, okay, am I excited about this? Does this excite me? Does this interest me? And as I'm reading the script to myself, if there is like if nothing is happening, or I'm confused, or I'm like, what am I trying to say here? I'm going to go back to the drawing board, and I'm going to keep working on it until it comes out a way that I almost can't wait to go and tell the story to somebody else. Because when I get to that point, then I know the story is ready. Many times in our mind, we think that our message is clear, and it's not. Yeah. Most of the time, like 9 times out of 10, you think your story is ready, and it's actually not. And you only find out when you start explaining it to somebody, and you realize, oh, wait a minute, it's actually not as ready as it could be.
Yeah, there is a really good question from Tina Hyvönen. What's your take on using videos when sending proposals? And I want to answer that from the point of view, which Stina presented the sales process, and here what's happening between the official meetings. And if we think about videos inside the proposal or together with proposal, when salesperson is pitching the proposal in a video, from how I see and how I understand how it should work, is that it's really important part of that time between the meetings when the proposal itself is the sales tool which the buyer is using to sell the idea to his or her colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's using videos inside the proposals. We do it a lot, nearly every time. And the idea behind that is that then it's only way for salesperson to join those discussions.
Yes.
To put himself inside the video.
Yep. And the only negative part, like there's 100 positive things to that, which I fully am in agreement with you on there. But the only negative part about that is that you don't hear the feedback. So the thoughts that they have, the questions, the unasked questions, you cannot ask them and you'll never know what they are. So in their mind, if they're thinking, well, how's this thing work out? So what I would suggest, maybe, what if the video proposal did not include prices, but more your key selling points, and say, for example, just transferring the material that, like, say, for example, taking the bullet points from the meeting, you listen to what the person that you talk to, your champion, what they said, and you take those bullets and say, hey, so we discussed with so-and-so, with Janne over here, and these are the things that we found. This is how we can help you, and I'm going to be making you a proposal. So what if you still had the proposal where you are then able to discuss and hear from them? Of course, there are different types of, now there are such different types of services, completely depends on what you are also selling. Because, for example, one thing that I did not mention is if I'm selling our booking pilot, I already present the offer on the first meeting. If I'm selling like a brand study, I don't present it on the first meeting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. If we jump to our one end topic is this management and leadership in new customer acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
How should you manage the process? How should you lead the people? What is your opinion? You like KPIs?
I like KPIs. Well, and we will take a look at some of the KPIs, which KPIs we should follow and which not. One of the things that we have found, and study after study shows, that number of sales meetings is not a very good indication of produced revenue, and which is an unfortunate fact. Well, then what do we look at? So we're going to be taking a look at that. And well, then
you want me to change the slide to next?
Yeah, well, yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
So these are the most important KPIs that we follow. So obviously, I have a outbound calling team of 15 people here in Finland and some agents in Sweden that make cold calls on behalf of our customers. And so every week, these are some of the KPIs that we look at. So number of outgoing calls by salesperson, that's important to know. Because if they make too few calls, then it's obvious that they're not going to get a lot of results. And this should always be in relation to their sales goals.
Yeah.
And so approximately 13 calls, outbound calls per hour is if you're actively doing, you have a good database with phone numbers already there. You can do approximately 10 to 13 calls per hour with maybe a couple, two or three good conversations. And on average, it takes approximately 2 hours to book a sales meeting, qualified SQL sales meeting, including the time from the start of the call to the end of CRM, just documenting the call. So on the left side is basically the KPI, and in the middle is the usual numbers that we are to expect, and then on the far right side we have basically listed the things that these KPIs indicate. So motivation and preparedness. So if you have your list ready, you have already done your prospecting, which I always tell to do, make sure that you do your prospecting, you getting up your database, getting your contact numbers at a different time from your cold calling time, or whatever form of communication that you then choose, so that you can be prepared and you can focus on cold calls. So these KPIs are for cold calls. And then rate of answered calls, that's interesting. That tells us about our database quality and also the best time to call.
Yeah. So
it's good to follow up also, like what time of day, what time of the week. And last week we had some conversation about this, and really the answer is it completely depends on your industry and also the buyer persona. There are different buyer personas that love the early morning, and there are different buyer personas that hate the early morning. So you just need to find out what works for you, and then of course try to time your calls for that time of the day and week.
And that's why I really also like this table which you have created with your people as an example how it goes and go in some days.
Yeah. If you can flip back to the other screen just for 1 quick minute or second, so number of calls per desired result. This is one of the numbers that we look at the most, actually, and even to the point of that we have started pricing our services based on number of calls. And the reason for that is that it is exact science. We have a calling system, outbound calling system, that tracks the number of calls. And so there's no question about it. If it says that you have dialed the number, you have dialed the number, and you have, timestamp data to prove it. And so that helps because, there's a number of reasons why it helps. But in a sense, I feel, and what I find, that in terms of KPIs, it is another reason why scheduled meetings is not a good KPI, is because it is not in the hands of the salesperson. The salesperson cannot, they can, they can do certain things. This is entirely in their hands. That's what I'm trying to say. And you want to make sure that the KPIs, how you measure your people, is as much as possible something that they can have an impact on, because that is something that increases their motivation. So if you tell them book 5 meetings per day, it's much harder and a much higher threshold to start calling, not knowing how much activity, how much this, how much that is going to require, than you say, make 70 cold calls per day, or 70 cold calls per week, whatever it is. And a pretty good general number across different industries, across different buyer personas. Here in Finland is 30 dials per SQL booked deal. If it's less than that, it's great. If it's more than that, it can still be great. If it's 100 per dial, then either your skills need to be improved, your script needs to be improved, or your database needs to be improved.
Yeah.
And then desired results per hour, that's also goes into the effectiveness and skill also. But I would really like to hone in on the number of calls, because that is the easiest KPI really to follow up on. You can measure conversations, but is it like, okay, they said hello, that's a conversation. I talked for 2.5 minutes. Is that a conversation? I got through all of my points. Is that a conversation? So that's why it's good to have the KPI be something that is the same for everyone, regardless of the situation.
I would summarize this kind of this management and leadership thing so that KPIs are in many cases the base to manage the whole process, to help to manage the whole process and to develop it, because they can be the trigger to get understanding what you should develop. Without those numbers, without measuring everything, it's so hard to understand.
Exactly. Very good. Hey, we have a question.
Yes, we have. How much do you use automation, automated emails or chats in between the meeting space? Or do you use at all? And how about the automation in general? Do you use it or not? Do you want
to take it?
I can answer my side.
Yeah.
My side, from Seidat point of view, we are using automations. We have built in our CRM sequences for all kind of outreach campaigns, and we mix in those campaigns emails, calls, contacting, SMS, all those types of channels. And yes, we use automated emails, which are partly generated by the automation, but they are triggered manually by the salesperson. So that it's not like a sequence with let's say 5 emails in one run without any other actions by the salesperson. So it's like a well-prepared process.
Yes. Yeah. And ours is the same. There are emails that we have for different phases of sales and also onboarding customers, but they don't automatically go, like they're not automatically triggered. And the reason for that, I think the good thing here is that then you're able to make changes according to the customer need and make it more personal also.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I mean, if you've got that availability, prepare your messages in advance, and I think at the end of the day, whether it goes automatically or it requires a manual trigger is kind of, I guess, a little bit irrelevant as long as you got your stuff in place.
Yeah. But if you summarize this discussion, I would say that this kind of proactive customer acquisition, it's like a best life insurance for all kind of businesses. If you trust only to inbound and you build your whole business based on inbound, there is huge risk that because of all kind of changes in the world, everything can stop. And this year can be challenging. At least for us, the beginning of the year has been really good, But I really believe that this is like a real test for all kind of new customer acquisition. It's like a competition, who will be alive in future and who not. And this is for you.
Thank you. So really, the faster that you win new customers, the more revenue you will gain from them this year. So we are in January now, towards the almost almost February. So if you gain a new customer now, you still got at least 10, 11 months.
Yeah.
Versus if you do it in a few months from now. And it does add up.
Yeah. And as we have said many times, be smart. You must have new tricks all the time to keep your business running. You can't trust only the way how you have did during the last 5 years. You must find new tricks all the time and have some kind of system thinking to develop that. Like you have done in KuDCall. Without that kind of system thinking, you can't have this kind of nice results with how your people has done.
Exactly. And the one word that's still missing from our thing is systematic. So continuous, consistent, systematic efforts.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, like, you're not dying without a new customer, you want to keep this new customer acquisition going all the time. It's like a muscle that atrophies fast, and you want to keep both the skill and the system going so that your business doesn't go up and down like this.
In the end of this session, I want shortly introduce what is Seidat. It's a sales presentation platform, and our mission is to enable winning sales flow. And using our platform will give you opportunity to manage the whole sales material in the whole life cycle of your sales material in one cloud app. And it gives you many new sales opportunities because your people can use it whenever they want. And content is always up to date. And those features, how to integrate that with all your current marketing and sales ecosystems, those opportunities are huge. So if you are interested a little bit at least, then please go to our website, and there you can find direct links to our salespeople, and it's very easy to organize next schedule a meeting with you.
Absolutely. And we're also very happy Seidat customers, have been for a couple of years already. And if you want to see my Seidat sales presentation, then let me know.
This was absolutely one of the best pitches I have heard.
All right. I guess
Yes.
we are about to wrap up, yeah?
Yes. Have you answered anything about this topic, maximizing new customer acquisition? I think we have found many tips which could help you to develop your businesses. And now I must say thank you all of you who has been online, and thank you, Stina. It has been so wonderful discussion together with you once again.
Yes.
Good luck for your businesses. Please take this year seriously and ramp up your sales up to wherever you want.
Yeah. Yes. Go kill it.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you
Have a
guys.
nice evening or day or morning, whichever you have in your place where you are. Thank you.
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye.